KOing on ketamine. Some people hate it, some people love it. So let me take you along in the wondrous world of a K-hole. I will do so by taking you along what the effects are of a K-hole and ketamine, and also give you some tips on how you can stay away from a K-hole if you would like to do so. Ketamine has the psychoactive effects as it hits the same receptors as psychedelics. So for example, this could mean hallucinations. Well, if you see the screen now, you will sort of understand what I mean. I always remember if I would be tripping on ketamine, that it would sort of look like everything was drawn, so I wouldn't see much depth. You can have dissociation from your body, which is also pretty fun. I remember the first time that I was really tripping hard on ketamine. I was just standing there and doing this. It sort of felt like my body was reacting later than my feeling of my arms went. It can also mean confusion. This can be due to the fact that your brain doesn't really comprehend with you at that moment. So don't go into heavy topics when you're on ketamine. But also, music hits different. And that's what I always love the most. I always sort of explain it like that music was coming from somewhere back here. Of course, ketamine numbs your body. The music just sounds different. It could very well be that you become pretty happy. You also become pretty relaxed because, well, ketamine is also used as a antidepressive. So no, keta is not only for horses. Then you also have the physical effects, being unable to move yourself. So yeah, that also comes down with the KO. I'm gonna go a bit more in depth to that. Difficulty speaking, well, I already have. If your brain isn't really working with you, then you also might have some trouble speaking. And a floating sensation, or how I would like to call it, walking in the clouds. And that was always also really fun for me, walking around a club on ketamine, because you are not in full control of your body. Of course, hey, it's still fine, you can still move around and etc. But it feels like you're walking on Mars and you're walking on the clouds. So then the K-hole itself. If you take a little bit too much ketamine, you can get yourself into a K-hole. And then you get all of these effects sort of together. So if you're unable to move, my biggest tip would of course just be go lay somewhere, sit it out or lay it out from that perspective. But it can also be frightening, or it can also make you feel powerless at that moment because you cannot move around. It might definitely be pretty intense if this is your first time that it happens. And it can be pretty frustrating because you're not really normally able to communicate with one another. Yeah, as I said as well, if you're not able to really walk, you may simply also just look really immobile and intoxicated, and that's just the truth. If I would compare it with something, it's like being drunk, but then without the chaos of alcohol in your head. So you can sort of compare it to that, or I always did. Other symptoms could be confusion, unexplainable experiences because you're tripping, floating sensations, walking in the clouds, and mind and body dissociation. For me, always these kind of effects, I always really enjoyed them. And this is not like, hey, go do ketamine, because for everyone that's different. If you are a person that really likes to be in control, this might not be for you. But for me, I used to be always feeling like I always wanted to be in control, but then having a trip on ketamine always allowed me to sort of really calm down and to sort of see life in a different way as well, because I wasn't really in control, and for like the time span of like an hour or something, I would just be in a total different world. For me, it was also always like that I had the feeling that I'm sort of in a television show. So one thing happens after the other. If I would be in a club, for example, I had a lot of fun of this. Then I was on the dance floor, then I was in the toilets, then I was chilling somewhere with my friends, but it always felt like a little TV show. Again, don't go for like really important conversations when you're on ketamine. You're not able to do so. You might sound pretty stupid. Your mind also goes all places, or at least for me it was always like that. I just thought of weird things. That's what you have with psychedelics as well. If you aren't experienced with ketamine, don't just start off with big lines and ruin the experience. It is the same with other drugs, and especially with psychedelics. If it is the first time that you are taking it and you are taking too much, then you instantly might get into a bad trip or into a K-hole, and then judge the drug for being something trippy or bad, whilst you've taken too much to even enjoy ketamine. And for me as well, I remember the first time that I took ketamine. I have a little video about that I will link here. It was just way too much. I got like 2 keys. I was tripping my balls off for the first 5 minutes. After that, I lost my vision and I started to puke everywhere. So that wasn't really nice. Take into account, if you take too much, yes, you could puke. You will just have to go through that for like an hour or an hour and a half, and then it's okay again. But just be mindful with it. This also comes along with don't combine it with other drugs, and especially drugs that lower your blood pressure. So also for me, the first time that I took it, I was already a bit tipsy and I was high on weed, and this combination was just, well, it was an experience. It taught me a lot, to be fair. Yeah, own responsibility is always something for me. So the first thing that hit my mind was like, okay, Mischa, if you're gonna do drugs, then please make sure that you're sort of experienced with it. But that's for another video and how I did that. K-holing. For me, it was always fun. I enjoyed it. The same thing for being drunk. You get better with it the more experiences that you have with it. Not to say that you have to do it or that you have to go for a K-hole. But yeah, for me it was always just laying somewhere, chilling with my friends. And yeah, it was always just pretty much fun, especially because it's also pretty much psychoactive. So I always enjoyed it, but I can also imagine, especially if you take it for a first time and then all of a sudden you're in a K-hole, that it can be pretty intense, and it can also give you bad feeling towards ketamine. So yeah, my little video about K-holing on ketamine. I hope you liked it. I wish you all a very good weekend, and if you're gonna do some ketamine, then make sure that you start off with small lines and then build it up. Take around at least 1.5 hours, 2 hours in between taking the lines, and then you're gonna be fine. Anyways, then there is nothing else to say than big hug, much love, and then I see you in the next one. Ciao, ciao.